kind of poking at me here the last week or so, Jack. I've heard a lot about this, and I don't know if you got a how question. I know you probably do as well. Let me throw this one out here to get things kind of rolling. And if you're an owner, if you have what people would often refer to as a good problem, and that good problem would be you're turning away business, or you're not able to quite get to all the business, or to get all the quotes done on potential business. And the question we'll often ask from that standpoint is, how do you set your selling price? If all of a sudden you're so overwhelmed with business and you've got a huge influx of business, how do you set your selling price? And
You should just look up your competition and copy what they do, less 2%.
that's one of the answers. I was thinking as I was pondering this question, Jack. I was trying to think of almost a Family Feud type approach to this. We could probably do this for most of our how questions, right? Which is, here are the top 3, 4, 5, 6 answers that we tend to get, right?
We could predict them too. Do a Karnak.
Yeah.
Karnak. If those out there can remember Johnny Carson and his Karnak routine, where he'd have the question pre-answered. And it was a lot of fun. The whole thing was a lot of fun.
I was actually using that last week. We're having some elections for our PTU, and people send in their ballots through the mail, right? And they had envelopes. So I took it, and I said, "This is so and so's name, right?"
Put it to your head.
And I opened it up, and it was the person. They said, "How'd you do that?" I said, "Oh, let me try it again." I did it again, twice in a row. I said, that's my Karnak impression for the day. But we'll hear a lot of the same responses, right? So one of the top 5 for sure is going to be, well, I look at my competition, and I price based on my competition, and that can be okay, and it's good to know what your competitors are charging, at least to be aware of it. But if that's your sole purpose or your sole way of doing it, and if you do what Jack's suggesting, which is I take that price and I discount it a bit, that is a very, very slippery slope, especially for a smaller company. Now, if you have some bigger volumes and some abilities to negotiate with some of your vendors and get better terms, like some of the big boys, like a Walmart per se, that they try to talk about being the lowest price. Okay, that's one strategy for a big guy. For a small guy to be the lowest priced person, as far as we can tell, that's a going out of business curve.
Absolutely, it might have a temporary marketing advantage to you, but ultimately that's not the way to do it. And well, so how do you set selling price, Adam?
Well,
how do you do that?
That's one of the most popular ways to do it.
That's a sub-how question of how do you set selling price. Now you're gonna.
We're not going back to this again, are we?
Yeah, I think
probably
so.
all right.
It's all these how questions get. You have to have subcategories of how questions. But yeah, go on.
Well,
so how do you set selling? I know you know how to set selling price.
I know. I'm trying to get some of the common answers. This is a good path to go on, Jack. So probably, I would say probably the top answer is that, hey, I'm looking at what my competition charges. I'm pricing based on that. It may be a discount to that, or maybe a little premium, but it's usually that's kind of the bogey.
That's probably the right answer for the subject we're talking about, but it's the wrong answer for setting the selling price.
So, and the reason why that's the case is, if you're looking at your competition, their costs and the way that they do things might be very different from you. I can give you a very simple example. We've got a client that does landscaping, and they've got quite a bit of investment in technology, quite a bit of investment in team and staff and equipment. Now, if they look at some competition, and again, it depends how you define competition, but if it's anybody who's doing any kind of landscaping work, well, I might have a couple of guys a couple of guys in a truck that have no overhead, no investment in technology, no people on staff, no administrative staff, nothing. No website, just a couple of guys in a truck.
Pretty cheap.
Okay, so if you view them as competition and you're going to price based on them, well, you might be able to undercut their price, but chances are they can probably undercut your price again. And what will happen is you'll get on that going out of business curve. So you want to understand your costs.
Ooh, now that's a pretty tough subject. It's easy to say, but very difficult to do. Having a degree in accounting, I remember those years of going through all the various accounting courses, and cost accounting was probably the least liked and least taken. Although you had to take it, you had choices within the accounting choices. You didn't have to take cost accounting. So since you didn't have to take it, most people didn't. And today there are not a lot of people who understand cost. costs can get confused with expenses, and costs are vital to being able to set your selling price correctly.
Wait a minute, so you're telling me that even accountants didn't like the cost accounting courses?
Oh
here?
my God, yes.
How bad did it have to be? Again, because most accountants like accounting courses, so they didn't want to, it's okay, so you actually had no non-accountants taking
I'll speak.
the
I'll
cost
speak
accounting
certainly
course.
for myself, but yeah, cost accounting is it's difficult. It's difficult because it's not widely used and discussed. Big corporations for sure, but little companies, they don't understand costs. So, a landscaping company, we're going to look to see material, labor, and overhead, and defining those categories. Material, okay, there's difficulty with that when you do or do not have inventory, and overhead, that can be the monster. How do you allocate all kinds of crazy expenses that are incurred? Labor is probably the easiest one to figure out. So you have those three components that make up your cost, but just adding them up with some total, you got to do some analysis, and that's where it breaks down.
Yeah, it's rare that we talk to an owner that says, "Hey, yeah, I've been losing money on jobs." Right? Usually, it's, "Hey, I've been making money on these jobs. Every job we do, we make money on." Yet, if I look at the overall company, they might not be making the money that they think that they're making. Or they may actually be losing money.
That's right.
So, but I understand my cost, Jack. I mean, hey, I'm paying my vendor X this, my vendor Y that, or I'm paying my labor force this, and I'm making money on all my jobs. How am I? I'm gonna get to another how question. How am I all of a sudden losing money when I'm doing stuff here? So, all right, stick around. When we come back, what we'll do is we'll delve into this a little bit in terms of how to better understand your cost when it comes to setting your selling price. And for those of you who are having the issue right now of turning away business, this might be very, very important for you.
That's where we started.
That's right. It's all